You guys, you would not believe who's backstage right now. I'm so It's me, America's sweetheart. You find yourself at the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books. Congratulations. Give yourselves a round of applause. Would you do that? Wonderful. You are at the Los Angeles Times stage, the biggest and the best stage at the festival. And before we get started, I want to make sure I tell all of you about Roman's Bookstore. It's right there. Anybody you see on this stage, you can purchase a book right over there at Roman's Bookstore and get it signed right next door at the Los Angeles Times stage signing area. So that's it for house cleaning. Up next, we are pleased to welcome an Emmy Award-winning actress and best-selling author. Her award-winning career in television and film has spanned an impressive 7 decades and has included iconic roles on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Golden Girls. She's as busy now as she's ever been, seen regularly on Hot in Cleveland and the new hit show Betty White's Off Their Rockers. Today, Betty will share some stories about her long and very successful career and provide lots of details about her latest book, Betty and Friends, My Life at the Zoo. Betty's love of animals began, and I'm literally quoting her, in the womb. Her zoo book is extraordinarily special to her. Animals are her passion, and she's very involved in supporting the critical work zoos are doing to combat species extinctions, and she knows well the importance of individuals working to sustain a biodiverse planet. Interviewing Betty today is a familiar voice from NPR and longtime festival participant and author in her own right, Karen Grigsby Bates. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome self-described zoophile, the inimitable Betty White.
Shoot, I didn't know they were going to let people go up there.
Oh my
I would have stayed up
goodness,
closer.
nobody showed up. It's just a terrible thing. This is, thank you for being here.
This is probably the most fun that I've had in the, 16 years that I've been doing the book festival. And when they called and said, "Can you talk to Betty White?" It's like, can I? Are you kidding? Seriously?
No, it was a challenge. Can you get a word in edgewise?
Well, I work with reporters, so we next to never get a word in edgewise with each other, so that's fine. Let's talk about animals for a minute, because that's your newest book, and that's your eternal passion, aside from Alan Ludden. You did not put on a leash.
I didn't have to.
So we know you've been.
Oh, you're cool. You're not
That animals have been your love since.
You guys.
Just about since you were able to walk, maybe even sooner.
In the womb is when the interest started, because my parents were just as animal nutty as I am, and so I'm deeply grateful that they passed that passion on to me.
And were you one of those kids that always had a dog, a cat, a turtle, a hamster in the house?
A white mouse. That was the only one my mother wasn't thrilled with. I bought it for a nickel at school at lunch from a boy. And I named it Pluto, and I brought it home, and I was so thrilled, and my mother was a little panicky about mice. But Pluto lived with us and lived a long mouse life, so he was fine.
So were there cats and dogs too? How did those guys get along with Pluto?
Oh, there were cats and dogs, but I always try to keep it down to 3 max. I don't not to have a million of them, except for one period of time during the Depression. My dad made radios to sell for extra income, and he would make the radios and sell them, and it wasn't the best business deal in the world, because he couldn't sell them because nobody else had any money either. So he would trade them for dogs or cats. No,
that you had to feed that cost money.
I was going to say the radios didn't eat, but the cats and dogs did. It wasn't his finest business at all.
But it had a nice fringe benefit.
Oh, did it ever. Did it ever.
Your new book is subtitled What I Saw at the Zoo, and you've seen more zoos than most of us, certainly than I, and probably than most of us here, because you work with zoos and you're a zoo advocate. Why do zoos need our help?
Well, they need our help, but they need our understanding. The purpose of this book is to let people know the good that zoos do. Without zoos, we've lost so many species that have gone extinct, but so many more would have gone extinct if it weren't for our good zoos. And they not only work for the animals in captivity, but they also, what we learn from the captive animals, they take over to dwindling populations and apply what they've learned and help those dwindling populations grow.
So for people who say, oh, zoos are terrible, they're just prisons for animals, how can you have that? I mean, what's your answer? Your answer is?
My answer is you don't understand, my friend, and let me talk to you. It's something that they were taught growing up, that animals in captivity, that's terrible. But they not only help save dwindling and disappearing populations, but they let people, you can see animals on film or in books a lot.
Just a little.
But you don't get the same reaction, or you don't get the same understanding that you do when you're up close to an animal, and when you see it and smell it and sometimes are privileged to touch it. That's what makes people aware that those animals must be protected.
When you go out of town or when you go out of the country and you're visiting around, do you drop in and visit the local zoo the way some people visit the local museum, or I visit the local grocery store? It's lame, I know, but I do.
I certainly do, and I try to make time to make that possible. And it isn't always easy, it isn't always possible. But whenever I can, so that I know a lot of the zoos around the country, and they're like my other home.
Do you have some favorites besides the LA Zoo?
Well, the LA Zoo, of course, that is my other home. But Cincinnati has a fine zoo. Chicago has two fine zoos. And the wonderful part about Chicago, the Lincoln Park Zoo is right in the center of town, and it's free. They charge no admission, and the population of Chicago appreciates it, and they visit their zoo and they get to know the animals. It's wonderful.
We have a pretty big zoo here in Los Angeles, and I know you've done a lot of work with it over the years, made a lot of contributions to it over the years. Your name's on walls and sidewalks. What's special about the LA Zoo, besides the fact that you live here and it's your zoo?
Well, again, they have a wonderful program of education and of what I love is to get to know the keepers, because the keepers have those animals are like their children, and the care and the California condor is a good example. We got down to 11 birds. Their home base is up around Sespe,
Oh yeah, it's okay.
California.
I just wanted to.
And because of hunters and because of various things, down to 11 California condors. Now, these birds have been around since the Pleistocene age. They've been around forever. And to get down to 11 birds and realize that they're going to be gone. So we got great criticism because we took all 11 birds into the Los Angeles Zoo for a breeding program in conjunction with San Diego Zoo. Well, I tell you, it was some kind of celebration when those first eggs were laid and when the first ones were hatched. The update is there are now wild condors back flying around Sespe, California, flying down in Mexico, flying over the Grand Canyon. The species has come back with a vengeance, and it's just wonderful. Yes, thank you.
You know, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people have wild animal fantasies. You know, you see people that, I really want to have a tiger come in my backyard and bring him up and call him Nicky. Or, you know, as a reporter, every year you hear a couple of wild stories about some guy that tries to keep, you know, a tiger or a Komodo dragon or something in his apartment because it's been a long-held fantasy. What do you think about the idea of exotic animals as pets?
Oh, it always has a sad ending. It always has.
For one of us, huh? One or the other.
Well, usually, or both. But I got a phone call one day at work that, I've got this cougar in my apartment and they're trying to take it away from me. Betty, you help me keep my cougar. I love my cougar. Well, I'm afraid I turned cougar myself. Well, I do that sometimes in other ways too.
George Clooney told me, SAG Awards.
But exotic pets, they don't belong in captivity. And as I say, it's always a sad story. That's why we have the zoos. And that's why you can go to a zoo and get the up-close and personal experience of the animal without getting it in trouble or yourself in trouble.
Speaking of up close and personal, you've had a really interesting experience with I guess a formerly wild animal. You spent some time with the famous Coco.
Oh, Coco is
Tell
my
people
girl.
who Coco is.
Coco is you've read about Coco and you've seen pictures of her. She's the signing gorilla who does American Sign Language. And she's this enormous girl, and she is so beautiful. Well, the lady who raised her from an infant, Dr. Penny Patterson, lives with Coco up in Coco's own house up near Northern California. And so I go up and see her every once in a while. And the first time I went up, there's an office about that big, and then there's a fence, like fencing wall here, and then Coco's whole house is the other side of that wall. Well, Dr. Patterson put a stool up against the mesh, and Coco, I sat on a stool, and my arm is up against the fencing, and Coco came over and sat down right here. So our arms, we just had the mesh between us, and our arms and shoulders were touching, and I was in hug heaven. I just thought it was wonderful. Well, pretty soon, Coco, there over here at this end of the wall, there's a floor-to-ceiling gate with 3 locks here, down low, one in the middle, and one up top. So Coco went down, and Dr. Patterson was sitting outside in this little office area, and there was a cabinet next to her. So Coco kept pointing to the top of the cabinet, and Dr. Patterson said, "Oh, Coco wants to show you her new television set. She's so thrilled with it." So she turned the set on. No, Coco made it very clear that wasn't what she wanted, but she kept pointing to the top of the thing. And so Penny tried it again, turned it on. No, kept pointing. Oh, Dr. Patterson said, "Coco, I'm sorry, I get it now." And she picked up a bunch of keys. The minute she touched the keys, Coco pointed to this floor-to-ceiling gate, pointed at the bottom, to the middle, and to the top. And so Dr. Patterson got the message, unlocked the 3 padlocks, and took one and opened the gate. Coco came out and came over and took me by the wrist and took me into her room and back to the whole house was open, but she went over and sat against the wall and indicated that she wanted me to do the same. So I sat on the floor and I put my hands on her fat tummy, and we were like this, and we had the most wonderful visit, and she could actually make me understand her sign language. It was phenomenal. And she, well, I must have spent an hour, and I think I spent an hour and 20 minutes in there with her.
And you had no hesitation about going into this large room with this very large mammal that you just met, and you know, people say, oh, well, they're dangerous and they can get angry in a minute, and none of that worried you.
Well, I think they understand that language, that wordless language. They understand, and I think I do too. You can read the danger signs, and they will make it perfectly plain. If they're not happy, then you don't force it. You don't annoy them or force them. But if they invite you in, oh my goodness, what a privilege.
So what did y'all talk about?
She went, at one point she got up, I'm still sitting on the floor, she got up and went back down the hall and back into her house back there somewhere. And she brought me a little toy alligator. It was about this long. And she brought it from somewhere back there, and she brought it out and she gave it to me. So I took it and she pointed to it, oh, meaning, oh, that's scary.
Scary, that plastic alligator.
It was a phenomenal experience. It really was.
Wow, that's amazing.
But then I've been back to see her several times, and she calls me Lipstick. Yeah, she does. She sees me, and that's Lipstick. That's my name, because not too many people who come to visit her wear lipstick.
So she remembers you?
Yeah. Oh yes. Oh, very much. Yeah. I get a girl greeting. You know, I do this.
We should be so lucky, right? Talk to me a minute about the people who don't live with wild animals, who live with domesticated animals, dogs, cats. This is the research says the number of pet owners in the United States has just done this. It's just skyrocketed. That people like having companion animals. They like the interaction with companion animals. Sometimes we bring them a lot of interesting places. And I'm wondering what you think about people who bring like their little dogs or their kittens or what everywhere.
Well, I don't happen to agree with that syndrome, because a lot of times, because they want people to see, the pet owners want people to see their pets, it's not always the best experience for the pet itself. There are crowds, particularly little dogs, so that kind, because all they see are ankles and feet, and their person that they love is way up here, and that it's not a very pleasant experience, and sometimes it's a dangerous one.
What about people who dress their little animals up in clothes? You know, $500 motorcycle jackets for your Chihuahua, a shearling coat for your collie, a mink-lined bed for your cat.
Well, again, those people are all about themselves. They're not about the animal. And they get a kick out of doing that and telling everybody what they do, and it doesn't really benefit the animal at all. The true animal lover, the true pet lover, has that guy for companionship, and pretty soon, well, it's like my golden retriever. His name is Pontiac. He's a career change guide dog, and they had to retire, not give him out to a blind person up at Guide Dogs for the Blind in San Rafael, because he had a bum leg that might need surgery, and people might not want to, do the expense of the surgery and just pass him off, but they knew if he needed surgery, I would do it. Well, he repaid me by not needing surgery. Honey is now 7, he'll be 7 the 1st of May, and we are pretty fond of each other. When I'm home, he's about this far from me, and that's about as far as he gets. But it's such therapy for me to come home and know that that guy is waiting, and that he understands completely the relationship that we have. I don't know how people get along without him, but that's just me.
I'm seeing more and more of them in hospitals and in rehab, therapy dogs.
Oh, the therapy dogs are wonderful. They visit the hospitals. Well, for instance, animal lover that I am, if I had to be in the hospital away from animals, it would be a tremendous hurtful thing. So to have somebody walk in with a visiting animal would lift my spirits materially. Well, that's what these therapy dogs do. They come in and they love what they do, and they know the individual patients. They know the beds that they can jump on. They know the beds that they're not welcome on. But you see the patient, the person. You see them come on, their faces light up, the eyes brighten. It's a wonderful service. And bless the pet owners and the dog owners who do those hospital visits, because they certainly do a lot of good.
Rescue animal versus bred for profit animal, how do you feel about that?
Well, the more rescues we can get, the better. But again, don't breed unless you mean it. Well,
You can say that for many different cases.
That's a good rule for your kids. Yeah.
I tell my 20-year-old that, don't breed unless you mean it. Betty says so.
But so often they want the kids to see puppies, and they want to explain the miracle of birth to their kids. Well, that's fine, but then all of a sudden you've got a litter of puppies that are unwanted. You have to find homes for them, or take them to a shelter and turn them in. And it's I preach against it as much as I can. Just rescue as many as you can. That's wonderful. And rather than go out and buy an expensive pet, there are breed clubs all over of any breed that you might want. There are rescue breed organizations. You can get a specific purebred by just going to one of those places and rescuing somebody who doesn't have a home.
So I'm guessing you're not all that fond of the idea of people who give baby chicks, baby bunnies at Easter?
No way. No live animals. Don't give live animals at Easter time. Those almost 100% of the time have sad endings. Somebody gave me an adorable little white bunny, a duckling. Grew up to be a big white duck, but a little duckling. And my parents, thank goodness, taught me how to care for it and do that. But we had this, that duckling doesn't have any relationship with living in a home as a pet. So, and then school started, and I had to go to school, and all of a sudden we've got this duck around. So Skippy, wasn't that an original name that I came up with? No, that's all right here. A boy who lived across the street, he was an older boy, but he was not a very well boy. And he took Skippy, and I would see them for years. I would see Virgil walking along, and here's Skippy waddling behind him. He had a wonderful home.
Presidents, lots of times when they go out, will have babies thrust into their arms, like, oh, can you just take a picture with my baby, Mr. President? People know you're an animal lover. I'm guessing people just stick dogs, cats, ferrets, whatever, in your arm and want to take a picture.
And I love it because I'm thrilled, believe me. But it's taking a pet into a crowded situation, and it's wonderful for all of you, but with the live animal, that's kind of a scary situation. But I'm always thrilled to get my hands on it.
What do you want people to take away from this book, from having gone through it? If you guys haven't seen the zoo book, it's got gorgeous pictures of some animals I've never seen. I didn't even know animals like that existed. What do you want people to take away from the book?
That very thing, and the reason I did the book, I've worked with the Los Angeles Zoo for over 50 years, and Tad Moriyama has been our zoo photographer all that time. But when he caught on very quickly when we first met, that I was so thrilled with his pictures and all that. So every picture he takes, he gives me a copy. Well, I had all these magnificent pictures. He catches animals at that moment when where you really see what the animal is about. And I had all these pictures, and I thought, I can't just sit on these or put them in the closet. I've got to do something. And I thought, a lot of the pictures of the animals, I've been with the zoo so long, those are personal friends of mine. So I took Tad's pictures, and then I would write my relationship to that individual animal. I had a wonderful time writing it. I just had a ball. And I hope, in answer to your question, what do I hope people take away, is an appreciation of the serious good work that zoos do.
We have a couple of minutes left. I wanted to switch to a different kind of zoo. The zoo that you work in every day, Hollywood.
Now speaking of zoo.
And you've been in the business for a long time. You are
63 years.
and looking good, right? You are, besides the fact that you've been in the business for this long, there's nobody that I can talk to, inquiring reporter that I am, who doesn't like Betty White.
So yes, there are.
Well, send me some names next time. But really, the numbers of people who go, oh my God, she's such a sweetheart, she's so genuine, she's so normal, she's so I want to know what the secret is. You long tenured and universally liked. Usually you can do one or the other in this town, not both, so you've done both. So what is it, the dimples? What?
No. I think.
And are those real?
I think it's, no, No, I think it's honesty. I've been in, as I say, 63 years in the business, and a lot of the kids today still relate to me because they grew up, or they know me now, but their parents grew up knowing me, and in many cases their grandparents grew up knowing me, and so I think it's the fact of familiarity and somebody, oh yeah, that's Betty, we know her, and I think it's a deep privilege, and I never take it for granted.
It's very different from a lot of today's celebrities who, when they go out, it's like, you know, lots of muscle around them. They don't want to sign anything. They don't want to take a picture. They kind of don't want to talk to you because they're like, well, I'm not acting right now, and so I don't. What do you think of that attitude?
Well, I mean, without the people who come up to you and want to say hello, you wouldn't be where you are today. And I just think it's a little ungrateful to not respond when people are kind enough to do that.
Some of our younger celebrities are getting famous for things that are a little bit different. Like there was a spate of about half a dozen young girls a couple of years ago that were known for not wearing underwear when they went out to public events. And the only reason I know that is because the paparazzi were there. Trend, or you think that should just be put by the wayside?
I think it's their business, frankly. And I'm not going to go around checking them out. I'm not sure how she got as knowledgeable in that order.
People Magazine, Bob. There it is. We had a couple of questions. The LA Times sent out an inquiry on social media and said, if you have a couple of questions for Betty, if you send them to us, we'll send them to you. And so I have a couple of questions here. Can I ask you a couple of quick ones?
Of course.
Okay. Somebody wanted to know if you keep in touch with any of the cast of the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Oh, of course we do. You can't work together as happily and as long as we did without becoming family. So I see Ed Asner all the time. Ed Asner did a Hot and Cable this season. So
Did he
that
really?
yeah, so that's fun. Gavin MacLeod I see all the time. Georgia Engel is taking Alan Burns was one of the creators of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And next Tuesday, we're going to dinner. Georgia's taking the Burnses and me to dinner. So those are long friendships that you don't ever want to lose.
And somebody wrote in as a real fan of your Snickers commercial for the Super Bowl. And they want to know if you've got anything planned for the Olympics.
No, I'm not. I was going to contend with the long distance run, but at 90, I thought maybe not. I don't think so. No, I'm not. I haven't anything planned at this point.
And my last one is going to be the hardest one for you, and you may not want to say it in public, but somebody wants you to tell them what your favorite kind of animal is.
Oh, that's such a tough one. Anything with a leg on each corner, as far as I'm concerned, that's my favorite. I find them all fascinating. If they have more than 4 legs, I'm not quite as enthusiastic. But the 4-legged ones, I certainly am.
Okay, and I have a last question for you. What's up with you and Pierce Morgan? Did anybody see that interview? He was falling out over you. He kissed your hands and he was dimpling and he was really excited.
And I didn't discourage him, you notice that. I enjoyed that interview very much. He's a great guy, he really is, with a wonderful sense of humor.
Very evident on the, for those of us that are watching it at home, it looked like it was a lot of fun.
It was.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. Betty's going to go off and sign for all of you all, as you could see and hear for yourself. She was hot in Minneapolis when she was doing Mary Tyler Moore. She's hot in Cleveland. She's eternally hot here in LA. Let's thank her for talking to us for a minute.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Karen Grigsby Bates and Betty White. Thank you so much. If you'd like to buy a copy of the book, you can do so right over there at Broman's Bookstore. Is that tent right there? Buy a copy of the book?